Hope you got your coffee. We're going to share some uninformed opinions. What are the best formula cars on iRacing? Well, I'm going to let you know what I think. You can let me know what you think in the comments. You're probably not going to agree, and that's okay, because at some level, we're all uninformed. So here's how uninformed I am about the formula cars on iRacing. We're going to start here with the Formula Renault 3.5. So before we start, maybe we should give some definitions. I'm going to go with the standard classes here. So S class, we're going to be God class. Amazing to race, amazing to drive. There has to be something exhilarating, really exhilarating about the experience of driving this. This is going to be extremely subjective based on my opinion. A class is going to be great to drive, great to race, but maybe doesn't have that X factor of exhilaration, but still super solid. Our B class is going to be some very solid cars, fun cars to drive, but that don't quite have that full experience. C class will go with subpar, maybe even some disappointing experiences at that level. And then for our D class, the cars that we're pretty much going to avoid, or maybe just send it in a license that we don't really care about maintaining to kill a bit of time. So the Formula Renault 3.5, this is a car which is no longer active in officials on iRacing. This was kind of your Formula 2 trainer car, really loved by the community. I unfortunately never got to race it in officials in my time since I've been on iRacing. I've driven it a bit. Tricky car to drive from what I remember. It has DRS, so there are some interesting kind of race strategy elements which kick in with a car like this. But it's not official anymore. But you got to balance that with the love of the community. I'll put that as a B class. Really solid, kind of high level formula car, but unfortunately, if you want to race it today, you're likely going to have to find a league. Um, the Legacy Dallara DW12. It's kind of weird to be talking about this car so early in the video, but this is an old Indy car. The only way to race it, I believe, is in the Carburetor Cup or one of these unofficial or unranked series. So the quality of the racing is really going to be kind of all over the place, but there's really no consequences for having a bad race. This is the kind of car that I say you got 30 minutes to kill, you've practiced enough for your next race, and this one's going official in 30 seconds. Hey, jump in, send it, see what happens, but don't take it seriously because you're probably going to be disappointed. I got to put this in the D class. There's really only one reason to send it in this car. You got nothing to do. It's the only thing you can do. Maybe you don't own that much iRacing content, so this can be a way to, if you're a road racer like me, ovals are kind of an escape. Do something different. It's a different type of racing. Put yourself in a different mindset, so that can be a good car for that. And then we go into some of these historic cars. Now, historic cars are interesting. These historic cars have been in iRacing for a very, very long time, I believe. I could be wrong. Again, uninformed opinions. We've got the Lotus 79 and the Lotus 49, so classic Formula One cars, very tricky to drive. The models are kind of old, like the Lotus 49, the car driver looks like something out of like Grand Prix Legends or something. If you want to race these in officials, you would want to look up the Global Sim Racing channel. They go official once a week. There's communities that race these cars specifically, and they race them at a specific time once a week. So if these cars interest you, that would be where you'd want to be. You got to show a bit of respect for historic cars. A lot of the focus in iRacing is to kind of be current with motorsport, or only 1 or 2 years behind, or sometimes they're kind of catching up as regulations are changing. But they do try to stay current. It's nice to have historic content, and it's nice to see that historic content raced, kind of like the IMSA Historic also, which you'll see once a week. I don't own these cars. I don't really know these cars. I don't expect that I would be very good in these cars. Um, but I don't want to disrespect them, so I'll put them as a C class, and we'll put C class as also I just might not be intelligent and be extremely misinformed. We'll move on to the Formula 3 car. You can have a cup of coffee if you're still here. So Formula 3 car, still quite active in your daily official races. This is a good formula car. pretty powerful car, lots of downforce. Um, but it's one of those cars where I don't race it a lot. I don't know if it's as bad as the F4 or kind of just the craziness that happens all over the place. I think it's kind of similar, but I could be wrong. But this is a very, I would say it's a solid Formula car, but I'm still going to place it as being subpar in the C class. This is an old model. I think that they should have updated the Formula 3 model in iRacing a long time ago. There might be some licensing issues there, but this car is still quite active. If you're looking to race regularly, you're going to get a lot of racing in this car. The Formula Ford. The love it, hate it relationship that I have with the Formula Ford. So, this is a really weird one for me. I don't like the Formula Ford in that I don't like driving the Formula Ford. I see no reason to hot lap in the Formula Ford or do any of that stuff. But I gotta say, the racing in this car is absolutely fantastic. You really got to be on it. You got to be smart. It's going to be super tight. The draft is really important. So decision making over the stint of your race is really important. It's not just about making the move and moving on. A lot of times there's going to be some really good pack racing. If you do stuff like I think the SCCA runoffs will include the Formula Ford or maybe just the Formula V. Because in the Formula Ford, you've got two series. You've got the Rookie Series, which will be a max of 12 drivers, so really smaller field. So as you're moving up in there, you're not going to get those longer races with bigger fields. And if you do the Class D races, then you're looking at 20-minute races with, I think, up to 20 cars per field, which is a bit more interesting, but that doesn't get nearly as much participation as the Rookie Series. What's great about the Formula Ford is the Rookie Series goes every 30 minutes. So you can just race, and not have to do that whole, the thing we love about iRacing and sim racing, which is, that race I want to do is in 45 minutes. So now what do I do? Formula Ford has to be an A class for me. I'm not putting S class because I don't enjoy driving it, but I think that this is definitely a car that's worth giving a shot. It's a free car. You can race it in Rookies to your heart's content. In Rookies, it only goes on free tracks, and you're not going to be disappointed in the racing. The racing is absolutely fantastic. The Williams FW, is that 39, 19? I can't see from this distance from the screen. This is the Williams Formula One car. This one's kind of weird because it doesn't race in officials, but they haven't legacied it, so it's still a full cost car at $13 USD. I love this car. I bought this car last season. They added it to the week 13 or week 14 it was last season races, which were unofficial, which were a lot of fun. It doesn't go official. It's a really fun car to drive. There was a league that was running this car, and they stopped running it because they have issues with the tire model on longer stints. I'm really hoping that gets going again because you will see me racing in that league for sure. Really fun to race with AI, which is what I've done a bit of. Kind of set up a championship with some tough AI and see how it goes with some quick races. Like quick races, like 1/3 of a Grand Prix. Really, really fun, but I'm going to put it as a B class because this is, if you like a fast Formula One car, there's something about the feel of this car that you should really, really like. How you're taking the turns, the way that you have to send it, the way that you have to control it, how it slightly understeers and oversteers, but in the right way. It's a really, really fun car to drive. Not a new model at all. Kind of sucks with these Formula One cars, or at least the branded ones from Formula One teams, is that you can't put your own skins on training paints. And for a lot of us, training paints is a great thing. You jump into a lobby, there's 30 cars with different liveries. People have made their own custom liveries. They've recreated liveries from real motorsport. Classic motorsport liveries, current motorsport liveries, wacky liveries, stuff that's based on all sorts of pop culture references. That's a lot of fun, and unfortunately you lose that with cars like the Williams FW39, the Mercedes AMG W12 and 13 Formula One cars, the McLaren. That's something that's not there. So it's something to keep in mind, especially if you're kind of making a purchasing roadmap for iRacing. But that Williams car, fantastic. we get, well, continuing into the Formula One cars. I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Cheers. Like and subscribe if you want some more of this content. So our Mercedes AMG W12 and the W13. So we kind of have two different generations of Formula One cars. We've got the 2021 last car, the last Constructors' Championship winning car by Mercedes, which I believe is considered as the fastest Formula One car in the history of F1. This is the car that Lewis Hamilton famously had that last lap loss of the championship in Abu Dhabi against Max Verstappen, the whole Michael Massey controversy. Lewis Hamilton, welcome to Ferrari. I'm a Williams fan, but still, Lewis Hamilton, welcome to Ferrari. So for the W12 and the W13, they're very different cars. The W13 feels a lot heavier, feels a lot sluggier, more sluggish than that W12. I much prefer the W12. For officials, the W13 is your only bet. If you want to race this in officials, what I suggest is following the F1 calendar. iRacing has a Grand Prix like Formula A series for this car. Nobody races it. You're going to see 4 or 5 people. It never splits. But if you do the 100% race distance F1 races, they follow the F1 calendar as much as they can within what they have as tracks in iRacing, and then they replace it with other tracks for the tracks they don't have. There are a lot of people, or at least there's a group of people that do those full-length races, and there you're going to see it splitting, 2 splits, 3 splits, sometimes even 4 splits for those Formula car races. So if you're looking to do those really long or representative F1 style races, the W13 is going to be your best bet. It's going to be following the F1 season, and we're really hoping that with iRacing's new partnership with Ferrari, that kind of hidden car that we're getting is going to be a Ferrari F1 car, so we can get a more current Formula One car. You can't put your own paints on this, so again, you're going to get on the grid and you're going to have 24 cars that have that same Mercedes livery, or the really bad iRacing liveries with a color scheme that they tried to fix, which probably looks terrible, but hey, we're working with what we have here. W13 for me is kind of disappointing. It's not fun to drive. Like it's a fast Formula car, but it really doesn't speak to me. W12 is a lot more fun, but doesn't go official. I'm sure that you can find some leagues that run this. You can definitely find a league that runs the W13, but I would imagine W12 still has some active leagues because a lot of people really liked this car. Then we get to the F4 car. The F4 car. What I always say about the F4 car, love the car, hate the drivers. This series is just amazing for the racing that you get. 5 to 95% of your race could be absolutely incredible. You could be swapping positions, fighting in a pack of 5-6 people in a super intense battle with one guy from beginning to end. But it feels like those battles always tend to boil over. And if you're in a battle and if you're committed to that battle, then you're committed to eventually crashing or spinning out or getting rammed or ramming, because people just can't keep it within that limit. When it's good, it's great, but you're going to have runs that can be extremely frustrating because sometimes a lot of stuff happens with the other drivers and everybody's kind of managing their situations, and it's not their fault. You're going to make those exact same mistakes too. It might just be the nature of the series, but this is for me probably an S tier car. Really fun to drive, not hard to pick up, good trainer car. The racing can be incredible, but it demands skill, and it's a good trainer. I think this is, for me, the Formula Ford and the Formula 4 are some of the best racing that you're going to get. But again, the Formula 4 for me, go through bouts of frustration. I'll race it for a couple of months and then I stop just because I have 5-6 races in a row where it just feels like the world is against me. But then when I come back in a couple of months, I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I forgot about Formula 4. The racing is so incredible. I'm just in an intense battle for that 20-minute period nonstop for a race. So, I guess you got to take it and leave it. Formula V, the lowest powered of the trainer Formula cars. I I don't really like these super low powered cars. They're not super fun to drive, but again, the racing in here is going to be really, really good. What's fun about the Formula V is this one is in the SCCA runoff. So if you do that special event, we're talking about a 40 car field. The Formula V is a max 12 car field in the officials that go daily. Um, 12 car fields for me, it's just not enough. I like to have at least 20 cars on track. I like to know that there's maybe another group to pass. There's always some action happening. There's always somebody coming behind. The 12 car races, I feel like you're asking to be put on an island, which is not what I want. I want races that really drag out, that play out, where strategy can get involved. Endurance races obviously are great for that. So for the Formula V doesn't hit that itch, but in the SCCA runoffs, that 40 car field is one of the most exhilarating races on iRacing that I will do over the course of the entire year. I'm going to put this as a solid B car. I know the people that race this regularly really like this. I think Fernando Alonso, surprisingly, this is one of the cars that he races on iRacing. So hey, you want to meet Fernando Alonso on iRacing? Maybe try that out. Then we got the Indy Pro 2000. So this is our kind of trainer series for the IndyCar series. The Indy Pro 2000 it's a really cool series in the fact that the schedule will mix road courses and oval courses. So you're really going to get a fun mix. I think you're going to get more road than you're going to get oval, but you get some oval courses sprinkled into there, which brings about its own form of racing. So it's always going to show up under that Formula Car license, but on the weeks when it's oval, it counts for your oval safety rating and your oval iRating. So that's something to keep in mind. I like the Indy Pro. I don't race it a lot because there's not a lot of participation. There's not a lot of participation on the road courses. But when it goes on ovals, there's a bit more participation on maybe some of the ovals, and I think those are really fun. These higher powered IndyCar oval races are actually quite tricky. I had a 150 lap race at Texas Motor Speedway, which does not really attract people like a lot. I'm not an oval racer. 110 laps in, I put the car in the wall. The car just turned and went left into the wall. These things just happen. And you really need to know the car to understand the signs of what's happening with the tires and where you're getting. And I just didn't know that well enough and just got completely caught off guard. But that can be fun. That's the beauty of racing. All these different series, these types of racing give you different types of things to do. So the Indy Pro for me is kind of subpar. If you're buying this, buy it for the ovals. Accept that you're not going to be racing this super regularly. This will never be your main series, but it's fun to do. Formula Renault 2.0. So again, we're going into those older trainer Formula cars. I don't know this car. I don't own this car. I've never driven this car. This car doesn't go official. I couldn't recommend this car. I haven't really heard anything. Maybe I've heard stuff similar to the 3.5, but I know more about the 3.5 than I know about the 2.0. Then we go to the Super Formula SF23. For me, this is a straight S tier car. Now, this is a tricky car to drive. It has standing starts, and the whole standing start is something that you really need to practice. Please do not jump into a Super Formula race without practicing a start. You're literally going to spin out on the grid and crash out 6 other Formula cars, or just put it into the wall and break 2 suspension arms. That's how these starts go. If you look at the not top 10 or some of these funny iRacing compilations, a Super Formula start is always going to be in that compilation because the guy just hits the gas, absolutely turns into the guy beside him or turns into the wall, and it's race over. There's no fast repair, and if you break a suspension arm, your engineer is going to tell you we've got too much damage. You're done. So really brutal with that risk and reward. So you really have to take that into consideration. But if you like that, really fast car. This is the second fastest car after a Formula One car as far as open wheel racers around the world, and this one gets quite a bit of participation versus the Formula One cars, which get almost no participation. So if you're looking for the highest Formula cars that you can race, it's really going to be between the SF23 and the IndyCar, depending kind of what type of racing that you like more. I absolutely love this car. The racing is great. It can be brutal, but the people that race this and race this regularly, they're kind of used to that. There's when you get into a bit of a higher split race, you're going to notice the level of aggression of people, how people are kind of letting things play out, the kind of decision making that you have to make. You can't just be balls to the wall and barge in on everything with this. You really got to race smart. I've won one Super Formula race, and I had to win it by from lap 4 to 16, kind of running a strategy, using my overtake system, waiting for my moment, really putting the pressure, and then defending smartly to make sure I kept that position. It was a really exhilarating race. Really exhilarating F1 style races. I can't recommend it enough. And then the Super Formula Lights, I'm going to throw that in the A tier also. This is kind of like your F4 to the Super Formula. A lot of people will say the F4 is like a go-kart. I think the Super Formula Lights kind of feels more like a go-kart, though it's a bit more sluggish. Though I feel a bit more, or maybe a lot more forgiving. The F4 will punish you if you kind of push it too much. If you do certain things, the Super Formula Lights, I feel like you can save it a lot more easily. Super fun to race. This is maybe not the greatest driving experience, but again, like the F4, you're going to get super close racing. I think this one has up to 30 car grids, so you're just getting wild. A 30 car Formula grid, kind of like a karting race, and the people are actually quite disciplined in the series, and it's quite forgiving car to drive, so you can kind of save it. You can learn some really good things, but it's a lot more sluggish than the F4 car. As a trainer to the Super Formula, I think it's kind of weird. The Super Formula it's a twitchy car, it's a difficult car, but I guess there's not really anything in those lower powered cars that can truly prepare you for a car like the Super Formula. You just have to learn how to drive that type of car. USF 2000, so again, we go back into our IndyCar feeder series. Another one that runs a lot of road tracks with some ovals sprinkled in. I really like this car. This one's very similar to the F4 as far as power, as far as feel. I think the overall lap times would be quite similar. The USF 2000 is a good car, but it doesn't get a lot of participation, so for that reason it goes subpar. If you buy this car, you expect to race it at Summit Point, I guess, on the road, and then on the ovals it'll get a bit more participation. The Dallara IR01. Need a cup of coffee just to wash that name out of my mouth. So the IR01, infamously the car that doesn't exist. So iRacing, I guess, decided at one point that they were going to make a car that was a cross between a Formula car and an Indy car. Who asked for that? And invented a car. Don't buy this car. Nobody races it. Nobody likes it. It's been vilified by the community. I didn't race it. I'm not trying it. I don't care, and I don't want to know. The Dallara IR18. This is another S tier class for me. So this is our current, quote unquote, you can't see with the camera, but current IndyCar machine. I think iRacing is planning to add the hybrid system, which I don't even know if I'm going to like that, but we'll see. This is basically the car that iRacing is using as the current IndyCar. They said that they're going to be upgrading it now that they've got the license back, which is awesome. This is one of the best cars to race. Another tricky car. The IndyCar in real life has no power steering, which blows my mind, but has no power steering. So the force feedback is quite intense, you could say. You might have to adjust your settings accordingly. It doesn't have the same amount of downforce as some of these Formula One cars, so it's very different to drive, but still very much a Formula car. This car is fantastic. My main league that I race in is in this car. I'm getting whooped by guys that are so much better than me, but it's awesome. The feel is awesome. What's great about this car is, of the cars that I've put in the S tier, this is the only car you can race that has a pit stop. This is the only car that you can race that has a tire strategy. So if you do those open setup races on the road courses, there's a lot of strategy in play. Even if you're doing the shorter races, playing between the alternates and the primary, it's not always the same tire. It's not necessarily the soft tire that's going to be the fastest or the best over the course of a stint. even in those shorter races. So there's something really interesting about that car. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and a lot of people still race it. And now that iRacing got the IndyCar license back, I think that we can expect that there's going to be more of this. We can expect more participation and more refreshes to that series in the future. The Skip Barber formula. Now, the Skip Barber is a beloved car. Now, when I joined iRacing, this was still a very active car. It barely goes official anymore, or there's a small kind of community that continues to race it a lot. But this was kind of what was really popular before the Formula 4 came out. I was racing this up until the Formula 4 came out, and when the F4 came out, I bought the F4, and it seems like everybody from Skip Barber migrated to F4. So Skip Barber was super popular, and then essentially got killed by the Formula 4 car. A really great trainer car. Not comparable to the Formula 4 car. Maybe the power is somewhat similar. I think it's slower, but definitely not as much downforce, almost no downforce on that car. But fantastic racing, was just a ton of fun. I would put this as a solid car. Buying it in 2025, I don't know. You're probably not going to race it that much, but there's definitely historicity as far as the appreciation that the iRacing community has had for this car. Then we have, what is it? The Legacy Dallara IR05, which I don't know and I've never driven, but this is another Legacy Indy car. The thing with the Legacy cars is, I guess that changed this season with one of the BMWs, but the Legacy cars are not included in official races. So if you're buying this car, you're buying it to do AI racing, which is not one of the popular things on iRacing, or you're buying it for a league. So I would say, if you find a league that's going to be driving that car, that's when you buy the car, and then you've got a commitment and you've got a reason to use that piece of content. But I can't really say anything about this. The McLaren MP30. So this is the one Formula One branded car that I don't own, but I love the Williams so much that I kind of went on a wild goose chase to see what are the different leagues that run these Formula cars. There are leagues that still run the MP 430, and it's, from what I've heard, a great car. I'm going to put it as a B car. Now, I'm quite skewed. I like Formula One. I like Formula cars, but I think that my selection is not exactly skewed towards that. But I do like the fact that we have some of these branded Formula cars, and I believe the old ones were kind of better than the new ones, though the W12 is a very solid car. And then finally, we've got the Legacy Pro Mazda. I think I've bought this car simply because it's Legacy. Did I drive it? I don't know. I might have driven it in a Week 13 race. I have no idea. But again, this is not a car that's going to go official. So you're going to get what you're going to get. So hey, that's my tier list. So let's look at this. In the S-Class, I put the F4. Fantastic racing, fantastic car. Again, you might love the car and hate the drivers, but you're going to be one of those drivers one day too. So, take it and leave it, but great car. The Super Formula, just, amazing. The Super Formula and the IndyCar, these should be my mains, but I just can't settle on anything, and I need to constantly do a different race in a different car because I've got a problem. And the Super Formula Light's probably the most accessible of these S-tier cars. I really would recommend that as far as a daily racer. There's a lot of people racing, and it's really fun to drive. The racing's great. It really checks all the boxes. In the A-Class, my A tiers is pretty shit. It's pretty empty, but the Formula Ford, I don't even like the Formula Ford, but the racing is fantastic. Can't say anything about that. In the B-Class, we kind of have stuff that's been phased out of the service. The Formula Renault, which was loved, but no longer active. The Williams, which I love, but no longer active. The W12, which is probably the best of those modern Formula One cars, no longer active. Formula V, which is still very active, but one of those lower powered cars, doesn't speak to me too much. The Skip Barber, great car historically, no longer active. The McLaren, again, no longer active. Our C tier, which is our kind of subpar disappointing, or just simply I'm misinformed and I don't know. The historic cars, I don't want to put them in the D class, but I don't really know these cars much. But they do go official once a week and they have a tight knit community that races them regularly. The F3 car, you can get some wild racing in the F3. I think that some of these other higher powered options are better, but there's still a lot of people that race that F3 car. W13 for me is a meh, but if you really want to race F1 at the highest level, quote unquote, that's your car. The Indy Pro 2000 and the USF 2000, these ones I suggest if you like Formula oval racing. Um, but you do have that option with the IndyCar, which has obviously oval races sprinkled into the calendar. What's fun with the IndyCar is it also has a separate series which follows the IndyCar calendar as closely as possible with the tracks on iRacing, and then substitutes in other tracks when they don't have a track. And you can do full length IndyCar races with the tire strategy, and those have really good participation, and it's great for safety rating if you're having a hard time bringing up your safety rating in your formula cars. And then our D class is really the cars that I wouldn't recommend that are disappointing. Legacy Dallara, send it in an oval in an unofficial race. The Formula Renault 2.0, there's no reason to buy a car that you're never going to race. The Dallara IR1, probably one of the most hated Formula cars, if not the most hated Formula car on the service. And then some more legacy cars. So my suggestions is really these top five cars, of which the Formula Ford is a free car, are just fantastic Formula cars for racing. So hey, that was a little morning video for you with a cup of coffee. Uninformed opinions that don't matter and that you don't care about. So like and subscribe if you want more. Let me know in the comments what your opinion is, and I'll see you on the next one.